Okay, so it's time to get started on the build process of the Toyota Yaris on the M-05 chassis. Now, the only thing that I am adding to this kit is a full set of bearings, and that's really the only option that I'm going to add at this point. I'm just going to do a little bit of a quick tour. I can see that we're going to be working on the chassis first and putting the two sides together, and then we go right into building the differential, and then you can sort of see that we're going to start putting it into the chassis and attaching a couple of other parts here. And then, you know, we're still working on the two sides of the chassis, and then we go into putting in the the front arms. You can see how that's all going to be built in step 8. Attaching the front axles in 9, going through the steering linkage, and then we've got attaching the pinion here, and then we've got attaching the motor. We start working on the springs and suspension, the front dampers, and then you can see this is attaching the rear upper arms. Here we've got the rear arms as well. And then same thing, we're going to be attaching the arms in step 18, rear dampers, the rear upper arms, rear arms in 16, and we start attaching things throughout, and then attaching the rear axles. Then they're going to do a radio check, and then we're actually going to start putting in the steering servo, and then installing the radio gear in step 21. And then figuring out the steering linkage, as you can see, and then of course putting the wheels together. Looks like they want you to glue them, which is interesting. I don't often do that, but we'll see. I'll see what I think. And then we're going to attach the wheels in step 23, and then the body mounts as well. And then step 25, the rear body mounts, and then of course the battery and whatnot. And then, skip something here. Oh, it's probably just the way they've done this. Oh. Well, that's interesting. What have I missed here? Oh. Well, what's interesting is I'll take a look at another, there's probably something else in the box in terms of the body. Because this obviously is an M-05 chassis instruction manual, so it's generic. This does not actually have what you're supposed to do with the body. And of course, here is the body, and it looks, you know, I find the body itself looks pretty cool. So I'm gonna have to do some work on that for sure. But the actual paint scheme, etc., is not in this manual. This is just generic. So I'll go ahead and find that, but that's okay. So we are going to go ahead and get started on the build, and I'll just pull some parts together for the first step, and we'll go from there. So here we are, step 1, the chassis right-hand side. Now, one of the things you're going to notice immediately is when I grabbed all of the parts out of the bag, it came with this correction notice, and it basically says that A3 have been redesigned. So this part right here has been redesigned. So you can see the old A3, this is the new A3, and I can sort of see the differences right here. The screw holes are a little different to what you see there. There's a more of a curved part on this side of it, but I don't know, it's not a huge difference. However, if you look at this D3 and it shows like it's got this little add-on, that is D3, and this piece here is not there in the new design. So just know that this piece is not going to look like this. That end is going to look like that. So I don't worry too much about it. You found the right part. So I'm going to attach this as it says and put in these pieces and whatnot, and then we'll move into step 2. But again, just know that right from the start, the piece is not correct. There's an addition, and in fact, with the bag that came with all of the plastic parts, there's some screws, because they're showing you that the way the servo is going to fit in, it's going to be different because of the redesign. So again, just note, step one, there's a redesign of the chassis, it's going to look different. So as you can see here, this little piece attached to this, which I've done, and all it's, I mean, they tell you to do it temporarily, and the only reason is it's going to slide back and forth. So depending on the servo that you have for the steering, which will sit there, this will lock into place where needed, depending on the size of your servo. So that's that. And this piece, you can see you put this on top. It doesn't even say you lock it in at this point. So that's it. That part is technically done. So the only thing left, as you can see here, there's your chassis, and there is piece D3, which actually slides into here, and it kind of is already kind of a tight fit, but I just need to screw in the 2 screws, which I have here from bag A. So I'm just going to screw those in, and then we can move on. So here is the completed step 1. So the screws end up attaching themselves to this other plastic bit that goes on to the other side. So that part's done. So here are all the parts we need. So now we need the left side of the chassis, this little piece, and this part here, and then of course this is going to attach to the other side, which is where the motor is going to go, and you can see there's multiple adjustments. So here are the screws. This seems like a fairly easy part, so I'm just going to screw these parts in. So there is the finished step 2. So those parts are on. You can see the other piece on the other side of where the motor is going to go, which gets attached with 2 tapping screws. So that's in place. So now parts for step 1 and 2 are right there ready to go. And we'll move into step 3, which is building the differential gear. Okay, so let's build the differential. I have the differential spur gear here. That's going to be screwed in after we've put in all of the gears. And we've got quite a bit of greasing to do. So I think we'll start with this one here. It looks like we're going to have to grease that one up. So let's do that. I always put just, a fair bit on. You don't have to go too overboard, but make sure the whole thing is covered. It's a fair bit on there. So now we're just going to stick that down there. Then what we need is there's 2 of the large bevel gears, and they're identical. So I'm going to grab this one here, and we need to grease this guy up. Now I'm going to grab the other one. I don't know if you've noticed, but this is the grease from the last one that we built. So I'm just going to do that as well. Get a new one. So there's that. And so that's now going to sit, oops, in there. There we go. Ring is in. Then of course we've got this that now has to go in. So we're going to grease all the little gears and grease the spokes on this shaft. It gets harder to hold as I'm trying to do it. those on. And I think do oops, grab that back. And in fact, I might just put that in. There we go. Inside there, that'll be easier. And then I can grease this up as I put on the other one, because we're going to put on the top part too. So you can see that it pretty much looks like this. And I'm just going to do a bit more greasing up there, so then we can put the rest of it together. But I'm just going to get some more grease. Okay, so having got some more grease, you can see that actually by doing this and spinning at the same time, you're getting a lot of the grease into all of the other gears. And so you know that it's going to be a nice even amount. So that actually looks pretty good. So I'm happy with that. And then what you're going to want to do, same thing with this, which I've done, and I've actually put the grease on the little this washer. What do they call it? I guess, yeah, it's a washer. And then I'm just going to put this on there so that it's down. And then you can see that there's the 3 holes and then the 3 holes. And so we just need to put that on. And then you'll use the screws, the 3 little screws that we have, to screw those in. So I'm just going to screw these in now, and then we can move on to the next step, because that means that we are now, that is the ball or the differential. So we're done. So I'll just screw those in and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so let's get one in there. And again, what I prefer to do when I'm screwing these in is kind of like how you tighten a tire, or I should say a wheel to your car, is go around, not just screw in one thing and then be done with it. Slowly go around each side and screw them in. And screw them in sort of like just going around evenly, so you don't tighten one end and then find that it's been over tightened or something's not gone in right. So I just kind of go around and make sure that everything's going in as it's supposed to, and just slowly go around and tighten. And I wouldn't over tighten this either. So once you feel there's some resistance, I would suggest stopping. Okay, I'm starting to feel some resistance. Yeah, so I'll just go around. One last time just to make sure. Yeah, and I think we're good. Yeah. I'm just slowly going around and just checking, because what often I find is when you tighten one thing, it loosens something else, and then you want to tighten a little bit more. But this is feeling pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So there is our finished differential. So I want to show you one thing. When you've finished building the differential gear and you've screwed this in, they have the 3 little tapping screws. One of the things that I would strongly suggest is going into the bag that has the drive shafts that are specifically designed to go into here on either side. And I would use this as an opportunity to test out whether you've done this properly. Because what I found is I thought I would just do a test where I would turn and see if I could get the differential working, and I couldn't. And the reason is these screws were still getting tightened too tight, despite the fact that that's exactly what I was trying to avoid. Now, the thing is, if you go on and put this into the rest of the car and build it, and then you discover that you haven't actually built this differential properly, you're going to have to take out or take apart the whole car again. So I would strongly suggest putting these into the differential and make sure it works. Now everything is smooth and everything's fine. I can hold on to one end, I can still spin it, I can hold on to the other and spin the other one. So now it's tight enough, but there is some flex in there. So now I've got movement. The differential is working as it's intended. So that's just a point that it would be wise to take these, stick them in, and actually move the drive shaft around to make sure that these are you've built the differential properly. So this is fine now. So I'll continue and move on to step 4.